doing? Awfully loud. This is awfully loud. All right. Good to go. Go ahead.
Hey, Bobby, just starting off kind of randomly, but Jordan Hancock is a guy that a lot of people are interested because of his diversity. And
right.
I know it's very early, but you had the spring with him, too. Can you kind of give us an update on what's happening with him?
Yeah, we're kind of, I think the best way to say it is we're kind of working him in segments, if that makes sense. So we're getting him to focus on a certain position, maybe here, certain position there. So, he can kind of build a repertoire of certain positions, and then it's our job as coaches and obviously our personnel to figure out what he's best at. And, so we're still going through that. It's kind of one of those things. Give him the reps here, give him the reps there, and kind of figure out what the best role for him would be.
Where have you seen Cole Bishop grow?
It's funny. I was just having this conversation. I think, I have 2 high schoolers, and I think the youth nowadays that I'm noticing, whether it's people could say I'm wrong, whatever it may be, is that I think the generation we live in, there's a lot of anxiety. And that's not a bad thing because you want to perform, right? Where there's social media, there's all these things that are there. Like when I was coming up, they weren't there. You didn't have to worry about that type of stuff. So I think his level of anxiety in the way of performance, he knows he's a second-round pick. He knows he's talented. He knows what expectations are. Although we deem his expectations, we make sure we temper those. That's where I've seen the biggest growth. And I think when you take away that level of anxiety of performance and stay in your process, I think that's where he's grown the most.
Going back to Jordan, you mentioned back in the spring that you're going to have quote-unquote, a drop-dead date as to when you decide what that role is for him specifically. Do you have that framework in your head, or is there something you're going to need to see from him before you make that decision to know that he'll be ready for the regular season?
I think I get the most drop-dead date questions going back to linebackers. I think, didn't I have a drop-dead date on linebackers? No, I think that's organic, like I said last time. Like, we'll know. I mean, there's so much as a rookie, and what we're asking him to do is a lot, and we're very hard on him about being detailed with it, and so it'll show up. It'll be one of those things where you'll be like, okay, feel good about doing this and this, or just this, that, and the other, whatever it may be for that role specifically within our defense. We'll know that, and it'll come when it comes, and we'll know. I know I'm.
And do team stuff yesterday. Is that part of limiting his snaps, or is he dealing with how are you?
Yeah, we just have an approach we're going with Joey to make sure that we keep him healthy. We have an approach. It's constantly evolving. We're in constant communication with Joey. There's nothing to be, he wants to get. He wants to make sure his craft is at the highest level. So there's the balance with us of a guy that would go, and us having to make sure, hopefully, in February, into January, he's still available. So that we're trying our best to do that, and we have a plan. And, credit to Nate, Sean, Brandon, and everybody involved and Joey of us collaborating on what that plan might look like. And it might change as we go. It's ever evolving.
See him as a 3-down guy for you, or is that the limitations are that on what he plays or how much he plays?
Yeah, he's definitely a 3-down. I mean, he's a 3-down guy. I mean, the biggest thing for us is making sure, like any good pass rusher, making sure, and you guys know how we rotate. And knowing that, or making sure that when it comes down to it in the most critical moments of the game where you have to rush the passer, that he's fresh and ready to go. And that's on us, and we got to make sure we do a good job managing that. It's hard. It's really hard, but we'll continue to work that.
How have you seen the differences with Trey White? In his last years, he was putting so much pressure on himself to return to who he was. He seems to be playing and looking more loose and free. How have you seen that changed with the 1 year he was away?
It's funny. I think Coach told me a long time ago, you learn from other people's press conferences, right? That's how you learn. So I watch all the press conferences while I'm sitting there working at from people on our team. And I was listening to Deion's, right? And Deion said it, like, he's home. Deion talked about it yesterday, that this is a special place. And it's very unique when guys come back here, how free they are. And that's a credit to the people that have built this culture. That's coaches, that's players, that's front office people that maybe aren't even here anymore. And with Trey, you just saw when he walked in the building, you just saw when he came out for the first practice through that tunnel the other day, you know, the appreciation that the people of Western New York and Bills Mafia have for him and what he's done for this organization, what he's done for me, you know, when I wasn't even necessarily his coach. And on a personal level, you know how hard he works. You know what he puts into this. You guys probably see it. I mean, and those type of things have been here even when he was gone. The things that he instilled here amongst specifically that corner group, they were still happening through CB, through some other guys. And the biggest joy I had was yesterday when I said to him, he was over at practice. He walked over by me, and we were in a team period, and he said, I said, how do you feel? And he goes, it feels good to have some legs. Feels good to have some legs. So I know mentally he's in the right place. I don't mean to go on a long dissertation, but I think he deserves it. And I'm really happy for him.
That's the one thing that was holding him back, his legs, because he was coming off the injuries. So, I mean, how have you seen his outlook change? Just not
he had an off season. Yeah. He finally had an off season for 2 years. He finally had an off season, and I think that brings a lot of confidence in moving forward for him.
With Trey, obviously, we know he's older than he was when he first came in and was an All-Pro. Where do you see that compared to maybe the first?
Trey's on a mission right now. Trey's on a mission. So.
How do you feel about your depth at linebacker and behind your starters, especially some of those younger guys?
Look, like, you know, everything's a projection, right? They've got to perform, and they've got to perform at a high level. I don't like putting expectations on people, but that group, their expectation is higher than anybody else's, which is exactly what we want. The depth piece, there's two parts. They need to perform, and they need to be available. That's the bottom line. And if we do that, we'll be all right. But we need to handle those two things first and foremost.
Joe Andreessen progressive and put more on his plate.
Yeah, I mean, we're putting a lot on his plate. A lot more than we even did last year, right? Because Joe was fresh on the scene. Hey, here's a special teams guy, depth guy. And, you know, we were ever evolving at that backup linebacker during the season, you know. But now we're putting a lot on his plate. You know, there's some things that happen. That's why we practice. That's why there's some mistakes that happen. But Joe's a football player. Joe knows how to play football. The ball tends to find Joe. So he needs to take it day by day, meeting by meeting, minute by minute. That's how he needs to approach it.
What's the step like for Joe, going from last year where it was a great story, you know,
right,
to becoming consistent, productive, dependable football player?
Yeah, I mean, that's the journey of everybody, right? I know it's unique because he's from Western New York, and, you know, I think we used to joke around. There was a billboard if you went on the 190, right? There's a M&T or something like that. Like, okay, Buffalo Joe, but it's not Buffalo Joe anymore. It's Joe Andreessen, the NFL football player. And, you know, every year, the greatest football players that I've been around, they feel like they need to prove they belong in the NFL, you know, and the all-pros that we've all coached, that's their mentality, and that needs to be his mentality.
At this point in the offseason, what's the goal for the defense right now?
Yeah, it's interesting, and you're talking specifically about training camp. So training camp, the number one thing we want to do is build that callus. We want to make sure we're prospering in this adversity. This is hard. Training camp is hard. We're going to make it hard, and we've got to build that callus through training camp. Secondly, we've got to build our defense. We've got to build our defense, and that's not only in who we're going to be. I tell them every year, past performance has no indication on current performance and anything we do in the future. So, you know, we need to build our defense, and that's not only on the field, that's collectively at the personal level. we could say as much as we want as coaches, but they need to build that. They need to get to know each other. They need to spend time together. And you've heard a lot of our guys talk about that. And then thirdly, individually, they need to carve their roles out. They need to carve their roles out and prove they belong on this team and to help this team achieve our ultimate goal.
What have you learned about TJ Sanders?
TJ's a personality, that's for sure. The biggest thing is, you go into an evaluation, specifically talking about college guys, and, you hope that nothing's ever 100%. You hope the evaluation you've made as far as their talent and their ability to affect the game is correct, right? And I believe so far that he's shown that talent is there. There's a lot of refinement that needs to happen. But he fits the Bills culture. He's a rookie. There's things where I got to make sure he understands he's a rookie. But he's shown that he fits the Bills culture, and he wants to be a part of the solution.
Maxwell Harrison, so far the first few days, day one, he had the pass breakup. You're pretty fired up about that.
Yeah. We're not going to ride the roller coaster, but day one, pretty good. Day two, we got a lot of improvement to make. But the great thing is we got practice today, and we need to see those improvements. But no, Max is intentional about what he wants to be and what he wants to do to help this team win. And the biggest thing with those guys, and you get into this with the young guys specifically, is do not think ahead. You have literally got to be in that second of the day. You try to think ahead, you try to think behind in training camp, it's going to bury you. There's too much going on up here for that to happen. You've got to be minute by minute, hour by hour, meeting by meeting, practice by practice, and I could go on day by day, but you have got to stay, and Sean talked about it today, you've got to be present. You have to be present right now.
Is that something you've learned about not letting rookies ride the roller coaster over your time, of not getting too high and maybe not beating them up too much when they're down?
Yeah, I think Terrell Bernard has said it when he was a rookie, how I kind of handle rookies. But it's all about creating. There's a fine line, philosophy-wise. Everybody has little different opinions, but I have found that you want to pull that leash tight on those guys early on and let it out because it's hard to pull it back in. So it's not that you're treating them different. It's you're creating, I think I've said it before, that urgency for them on how critical everything is here. In college, they're the best players. So it's, hey, I can get away. Maybe this practice I could pull back a little bit. No. Practice, we treat like games. So it's all those little, how urgent you are in making corrections, how urgent you are in understanding the details of those type of things. So it's just, as far as rookies go, but then there's the fine line of making sure they understand that they belong here and we believe in you. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I answered your question, but
I know it's early. Are there any names of guys who are standing out to you that you've been impressed by who maybe don't get the credit in the media that they probably should?
No, I mean, I don't. We're 2 days in. We've had guys that have had good days. We've had guys that have needed to have to show improvement in certain areas. So it's early. I'm not going to get into anybody that's, we have a standard as a defense. The guys know the standard, and they know if they haven't met it. And then they know if they have met it. You know what I mean? So I will say this, in 2 days we have one takeaway, which we are not happy with.
What have you seen of Shaq Lawson so far as he's been able to get a little more involved in the group?
Shaq's the ultimate pro. He was texting me all summer long. Hey, I know you're on vacation, but hey, in this clip, ultimate pro. We know there's going to be some rust to knock off, and those type of things. But he's a joy. I think Sean talked about him. I'd never been with him before. I've always watched him from afar. So it's great to have him here. Heck of a dude, and really, really happy he's here.
What are the challenges?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are the challenges of walking the fine line of figuring out what Hoyt and Ogunjobi can do?
That's
knowing that they've got a 6-game suspension.
I'm not going to go into details on that, but we have a plan, and we will continue to progress that plan. We have a structured way we're going to go about that, specifically in training camp, and then going into that. So we have a plan. Like anything, it'll continue to evolve and make sure we're all on the same page, but there's a plan in place for that.
Encouraging to see Hoyt's day yesterday and just the impact that he can have in different roles.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have Hoyt here. Great to have Hoyt.
It's a pretty unique situation to have two guys facing suspension. How do you come up with a plan like that? Like, what do you do? Is there other things you can look at? Like, how do you...
I mean, it's pretty unique. You just do the best you can to try to figure out both what we're going to do here and then also what the plan is, what their plan is, you know. So, there's no ill will there. It is what it is, and we got to adjust like we always do here in Buffalo, and we'll adjust and we'll do the best we can to have a plan that can maximize not only the Buffalo Bills, but can maximize their potential for when they get back.
How neat is it to see the light come on for some of these second and third year players in training?
It's really, really cool. I mean, over my years, you think about, and I'll just throw guys that I've coached, rookies, Terrell Bernard, Dorian, trying to think of DeMar, right? I was the safeties coach when we drafted him, so it's cool to see all these progressions. It kind of, in a sense, it validates a little bit of your, you always got to be ready to adjust your style and the way you're doing things. You got to be ever evolving, but kind of justifies the way you're going about things a little bit. And I know that's the same for every coach here, and there's nothing better for a coach than seeing a progression and a growth in a player that you had a small part of. That's why you coach. That's why you do it, and you take extreme joy in that. Good. Thanks, guys. I can't. I gotta have a little. My kids will kill me if Maddie knows. My daughter